Hello everyone, and thank you for watching this video. While I was surfing the internet, I was doing my usual daily research, what's going on. I was on Facebook, on the newsfeed, and I saw an incredible question. Now the question goes like this. In the digital age, can anyone be a photographer? I said, wow, that is an interesting question. It was possible even in the analog age to become a photographer. Getting the full picture of what it took to become a photographer then in the 70s was very, very hard. There weren't that many schools. But if you really had the big why, then you could. I mean, I did. I could not afford cameras, films, darkrooms and processing, but I did put all my good intentions to become a photographer. The first camera I had was one of these rangefinder compact camera, a Canonette with a fixed lens, with manual exposure. You had shutter speeds, you had ISO, and you had f-stops, of course. But I mean, to me, it was like a spaceship. I did not know where to start from, and there weren't that many people who knew. I mean, there were professional photographers, but who did kind of these family portraits and wedding photography and the type of commercial everyday pictures, which if you wanted to learn with them, then I guess you should have gone inside as an assistant, and if you are lucky, if you will find the right one, you may learn the basics. But literally there was nothing. There was one school in Switzerland then, when I started to actively learn photography and when I grasped the basic foundations of photography, which is like exposure, composition, and a bit of lighting. But really on a basic level, I could kind of test myself and start to make pictures rather than snapping away. Now, if it was possible then, it is very possible today. What makes the difference today is that as trainers, as instructors, we can deliver training very quickly. We can deliver information very quickly, and you have like very immediate feedback on camera. Of course, photography today is much more accessible than it was during analog time. Everyone has a camera on their smartphone. Everyone, I mean, most people have a compact camera. Well, a lot of people have DSLRs, which they use in automatic, but owning a camera, having a camera in your smartphone, having a compact camera, you clicking away is not any difference. It's not any different really than having a pen. Everyone's got a pen. Everyone can sign, everyone can fill in a form. A lot of people have written essays, dissertation, to do their degrees, to do their MAs, but they're not writers. Just because they own a pen, they're not writers. If they want to become writers, they have to study. They have to study the principles and practice. Practice deliberately in focus with what they want to achieve. First, they need to know what's important in writing, and then they can start to practice. They may need a mentor. They might actually take up a mentor which will speed things up, of course. But owning a pen is like owning a camera. Owning a pen does not make us writers. Owning a camera does not make us photographers. So today, like yesterday, if you want to learn this skill, if you want to master photography, you need to practice. And you need to practice deliberately. I know a lot of photographers who've been in the business for a long time, and they are professional photographers, which means that they charge people for their services. Now, they might have been 20 years, they might have been 40 years, but believe me, I've met a lot of these people who are not anywhere near mastery. I wouldn't call them a master. They just do photography, commercial, yes, but nothing really special, nothing that will really grab anyone's attention. They are professional photographers because they charge people for their services. I know a lot of amateur photographers who are a lot better than some professional photographers. But they don't charge. They do it for the passion, they do it for the love. But they are at a master level. They are really good. So what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is this. If you really want to master a skill, you need to know what to practice on. Owning a camera does not make you a photographer. You might have been clicking for the last few years, as far as I'm concerned, in automatic, not knowing what the building blocks are, not knowing what makes a good picture. Not long ago, I was at one of our exhibitions and somebody asked me a very simple question. They said, what is it that makes a good picture? Now, as a trainer, I immediately went like in auto and I said, like, what makes a good picture is like a very sharp focus, an appropriate exposure, a good composition, and lighting, of course. He said, can you translate, please? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean. Now, I went a bit more in depth and I explained to him what focus is. Focus, when I talk about focus, I do not talk about focusing. I talk about your subject on a very basic level of definition. Focus is your subject, your idea. Could it be figurative? It could be abstract. It could be conceptual. But focus is number one. Now, this is regarding the external application of your skills. Internally speaking, your focus is even more important. Your training will be internal to the principles to then be able to apply them externally to any subject that you wish. Of course, there are specializations, but any type of specialization in photography may it be portraiture, landscape, advertising photography, fashion photography, macro photography, micro photography, astronomical photography. It's backed up by the foundations. It's backed up by principles. These principles, we call them the foundation because literally, like, I don't know, a building has foundations to support it. What else? If you really want to go high on an ice scraper. Suppose you want to build a skyscraper. Sorry, I said an ice scraper. Yes. Suppose you want to build a skyscraper. You want to go deeper into the foundation. I mean, digging deep, and you want to go wider, broader, so that you can build and go higher and higher. Now, the same is with photography. The same is with any skill. The same will be with writing, painting, sculpture, mechanics, engineering, you name it. Anything that is a practice has principles to back this practice. And the principles is where we focus on forever in terms of developing our skills, because there's so much literally. If we break down composition, if we break down exposure, and if I break down light and lighting, and when I break down focus, you'll have enough to practice forever. So regardless of the fact that we may focus on a portrait, on a landscape, on a product picture, or anything, what we can do when we go on to specific specialization is not detract from the foundations, we add. So on a very basic level, we can add post-production, that's for one. If we want to do a portrait, we may have a makeup artist. If we want to do a fashion shot, we will have a stylist. a designer for whatever we want to photograph. May it be a dress, a suit, trousers, it could be a bag, anything. But we will have a brand, a designer for that brand, and we'll have to represent that brand. Now, we have to focus on what we're doing in terms of what type of exposure are we going to go for, what type of lighting are we going to go, what type of composition are we going to choose, and of course add to that makeup, add to that styling, add to that art direction, add to that some big major company may have a creative director even. So you are adding, but you're not subtracting. And you got to be very good. You got to develop your skills in the foundations on solid ground, because this is what will support any type of photography you're going to make in the future. It's just as simple as that. I don't think I can put it more clearly than this, you know. So our goal is to be a photographer, of course, is to develop an identity. Now, to develop an identity as a photographer, starting from the ground up, if you want to really get there quick, you got to develop a very strong belief that you can. The belief that you can master photography. You can master writing if you have a good enough why. If you really desire that, if you really dream about becoming something, you can. I mean, of course, there are certain things that are a little bit more challenging than others. Like music instruments, like the violin is one of the most complex. I mean, to go into what people go on about, like, the 10,000 hours. I mean, it's a bit of a generalization. I mean, 10,000 hours is 50% of what you need to become a master violin player. Photography itself, as kind of challenging and vast as it can be, you can really shorten those 10,000 hours if you do what they call deliberate practice. Extremely laser sharp training in specific areas that the breakdown of the principles within the principles. Yeah, you want to really get good at creative exposure, for instance. You want to get really good at challenging exposures, doing HDR, doing like white on white, black on black, you want to get good in setting up your camera for the best and fastest way to work. I mean, cameras today have grown too fancy. Manually, all you need is like a manual exposure. You need a good, of course, light metering for the specific circumstance. So you may want to switch from spot metering to evaluative or metrics or center weight. You want to develop first total dexterity with your camera. That means that you can use your camera in any circumstance, even in pitch darkness. You with me? Now, what else? Composition. So much. When I talk about composition, I ask people, you like composition? Yeah, I've done composition. I know everything about the rule of thirds. I said, the rule of thirds? Right. The rule of thirds is just the pinnacle. It's just a little speck of sand, really. It's a great guideline. It's not a rule as such, because it's just a guideline. I mean, there is no rule of thirds as such. The rule of thirds is a guideline which is derived from dynamic symmetry, which is the ultimate skill of artistic composition. Now, composition in itself, there's so much that is mind-boggling. You can specifically assign yourself, I don't know how many different types of exercises and assignments for yourself, just drawing out of what's in composition, the mother frame, the center, the edges, the corner, elements of design, you name it. It's endless, and then you start combining them. The same is for lighting. My lord, how many lighting setup can I have? It's just incredible. It's just endless. Perspective. Wow, perspective. I mean, I remember talking to somebody when I was in my early training. This was a great photographer. I was within my university in Venice. And he said, right, you as a photographer, and this is your subject. Imagine an electron, he said. You can literally go around your subject, from any angle, and you have a different picture. So as a photographer, you have to think of yourself in that position. You have all around the subject, from underneath, from the top, leveling up, 45-degree top, 45-degree low, side. I mean, it's endless, and a great way to make a study when you make pictures. I saw a real master in action was to literally shift your angle slightly all around the subject in relation to the light. Of course, you may end up just almost facing the light, but shoot all around it, and then you look at it. You look at those pictures and you evaluate them. And remember this, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video is this: you can become a photographer with a digital camera, with a shoebox, with a medium format, you name it. You can learn and you can be anything you want. You just have to believe in yourself. Now, if you want to take away something from this video, is this: believe in your capabilities. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this little intro to open up a conversation. Maybe you can post some questions underneath the video. You can post some questions. You can like the video. You can share it if you enjoyed it. And till next time, you have a fantastic time shooting. Click always with passion, and I see you next time. Bye-bye.